Hello everyone, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 30th of June 2025. It's Gary here again, and that's us literally exactly today, halfway through the year. And what a half of the year it's been in Rangers land, in NARSA land, in the world in general. It's just bizarre how time goes. I know I keep saying that, and I probably sound like an old fart when I say that, but I can't believe how quickly time is absolutely passing here, which is kind of incredible when things have been so bad in Rangers front in terms of our ability to compete and actually, challenge properly for trophies. Usually time drags on when things aren't quite as enjoyable, but for whatever reason, the world is conspiring to make sure that things go a little bit quicker for us, which then means that the new season is kind of upon us a wee bit quicker as well, which is always a great thing. Well, we sure have had an eventful week here at NARSA, which I'll talk about a wee bit later on, just in the convention update for this week. Some things going on. It's a very, very unique time here. But firstly, I wanted to touch on the outputs of last week's EGM. I did mention this briefly at the EGM. I didn't mention it at the EGM. I mentioned it on the podcast last week, talking about what happened at the EGM. Okay, great start, Gary. And what I'd seen afterwards, I hadn't seen any of the footage or the speeches or interviews or anything like that at that particular time, but it basically, they rolled a lot of stuff out, and it was very, very well received, very well done as well, actually. And I did catch up with some of the speeches, and Marathi, I had him as Marat or Marath, and he corrected whomever had introduced him to say it's Marathi. So I'm going to say Marathi like karate, just so that you know what it's pronounced like as you go forward. There's a wee tidbit, a wee bit of free guidance and advice from the NARSA Weekly Update podcast. And what he really talked about, lots of buzzwords in there and such, but what really struck me was the low ego meritocracy, which is what he was kind of talking about, basically saying we want to empower people to come forward with information. We don't need, it doesn't need to be the board that's making all the decisions, and I think that's one of the real drivers behind taking the club public as well. And it really reminded me of a thought that I came across recently. And it was basically, people at the bottom have all the information but no authority, and people at the top have all the authority but no information. And I think that was attributed to someone in the military, maybe at some point. I can't remember. If I knew who had quoted it, I would tell you who it was. But it's so true, isn't it? If you want to find out exactly what's going on, I think that's why they had all these undercover boss shows and things like that over the years. I don't know if that stuff still goes on or not, but you need to be able to get access to the people who can give you genuine information, feedback, guidance, and advice to say, this is what I would change. If I was the boss for a day, this is what I would recommend, and then have at least an adult, educated conversation about what that looks like. And I think the key here is not so much the understanding that the people in the club have information that would be valuable for the overall running of the club, but I think it's providing them with a safe space to be able to highlight what that looks like, to be able to provide suggestions, to be able to, they call it psychological safety here. I think it's quite an overused term in industry and life these days, but there is merit to it, a safe environment to say, here's something that's always been bugging me. Here's something that's always a bit of a pain. Here's something that people have just got used to, but it's not good enough. Whatever that looks like. And not just in the beginning of the new regime. That's the key, because in the early days, there's a little bit of novelty. And we went through this for, how many regime changes have we had in the last 12, 13 years? But, that to keep it going, to say, we are relying on you. I did a talk at a restaurant here in Calgary not long before the convention, actually on the Monday before I flew down to Kissimmee for the convention. And I said basically that, you need to provide some sort of vehicle for your staff, for the people who are interacting with the customers on a daily basis, from, the host who receives the people as they come in, or actually even through the booking process, then the host who receives the people coming in, and then the people that set them down at their table, and then who's serving them, and whatever that looks like. You need an opportunity to delve in, to tap into their knowledge, which they're accumulating all day, every day, and every shift, to say, what's the biggest thing that got in your way today? What was the most damaging thing that happened for your shift today? What was the most prevalent customer experience, not in a good way, and maybe in a good way as well, as well. We don't want to always be on the negative side, but, giving themselves the opportunity to do that, that's the key for me. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. Marathi also went on to talk about, paying real attention to data-driven insights that are provided through whatever measurement criteria they have and whatever systems and such they have in place. And they kept talking about the blueprint to success. Now, obviously mentioning the San Francisco 49ers, mentioning Leeds United, this is a different beast, and they've been quite open about that as well, in terms of the unique characteristics of Rangers Football Club as an entity, as an institution, and whether their blueprint will be absolute in terms of this is hard and fast the way that we do things as we go forward, or there's a bit of room for flexibility. I suspect there's a bit of room for flexibility depending on the nuances of what it is we're dealing with at a particular point in time. But they did reference also as well, paying attention to traditions and to history and things like that. So not too not anything threatening there that would say we are suddenly going to go away from being the institution and the club that we are. So, they're saying the right things at the right time, but the proof, as always, is in the pudding. And the pudding for us is the ability to compete, the ability to win trophies, and the ability to be back at the top of Scottish and the higher echelons of European football. I think we've done the European football part very, very well ever since Steven Gerrard came in, but the domestic stuff has been absolutely ridiculously bad over the last while. So hopefully we get a wee bit of a change on that. I did also want to talk about this, and I don't really know when is the best time to talk about it, but I was thinking about, I was just listening to Heart and Hand, the podcast last week, I guess it was at some point, and we were talking about Cyril Dessers and the opportunity that Cyril Dessers might go away, and he was a very divisive character. I think I've talked about that on this podcast before, in terms of his ability to score the difficult chances and miss the easy chances, and of course that becomes all the more, what would you say, difficult to stomach, difficult to put up with when the team isn't winning. Because if we have a chance missed and then we end up drawing or losing a game, and you go back to that chance that was missed. And it's one of these things, but it really started me thinking, like, when was the last time collectively, for the most part, not everyone's going to agree all the time, of course, but when was the last time we actually genuinely loved a striker en masse? And I was going all the way back because I almost forgot about Alfredo Morelos. And then I was like, oh, I remember him. He was actually quite recent as well. And I think that was probably the last time. But before that, because right now we've got the league's top scorer from last season, and he's divisive. And then we had Antonio Cholak, Tony Goals, and he was scoring goals, but he was divisive as well in terms of his overall contribution. And then I kind of think back to like some Martin Waghorn, and he was kind of stuck out on the wing a lot of the time, but still had a really, really good goal return. And he went for some serious money after he left us, and had a very impressive part of his career after he left us as well. So I'd like your thoughts on, in terms of when was the last time you genuinely loved a striker? And I think by loving a striker, you're going to forgive the things that they're not good at and really applaud and support the things that they are good at, because Cyril Dessers seems like a very, very nice guy. He's trying all the time. He was given a very, very difficult role last year, and he has that funny thing going on of missing gilt-edged chances and scoring some real peaches. So let me know what you think, but just food for thought that, I just want my striker to score goals, and he did. Did he miss? Of course he did. Do other strikers miss? Of course they do. But we seem to just be quite hot and heavy on giving the strikers a bit of a hard time. So depending what the squad and the team looks like as we embark upon season 25-26, hopefully we get a couple of strikers in there that we can all agree that are doing their very best, and we will roar them on to glory. I have promised that we will have a separate convention interview with Colin Wolf, Ferguson Bowman from the Orlando Rangers Supporters Club. Colin was unfortunately sick last week and was kind of on a bit of medication. I think it was probably all the stresses and strains of putting on the monumental effort that he did put on to get the convention being as successful as it was. So that's not going away. We're definitely going to do that. It's just a matter of creating the time to get that done as well. And here we go. What Gaz got wrong last week. This is becoming quite common now. It used to be like one every 5 or 6 episodes, and I seem to be doing it every single week now. Did you listen to last week's episode? I know there's a wee bit of drama around the club and certainly around NARSA for right now, so that might increase listener listens, I guess. I was going to say listener views. That doesn't make any sense. But, it increases the listens. And then when I listened back as I was putting the intro and outro out on it, I was kind of thinking, that sounds weird. Sounds kind of tinny. That's odd. And then I realised afterwards that I'd selected the wrong setting. I record this on GarageBand, which is one of the native applications on my Mac, and I selected, I think it was like guitar and bass or something, because when the interface came up, I thought, that's really different. That's weird, but people are updating apps all the time, so you just get used to it. And then as I listened back, I thought, it sounds like I'm in a tin can or some sort of, aeroplane toilet or something like that. So my apologies if it was a wee bit difficult on the ears. That was not my intention. I must have clicked the wrong button inadvertently as I was getting ready to record. So this one should be a lot better for you, and I'll make sure not to make that mistake again. On to the game segment. Well, I talked about this last week as well. We did have a closed doors game. I don't actually know when it was. I don't know if it was on the weekend there or late last week, where we lost 1-0 to Welsh side TNS in a closed door match. Some very familiar names in the game and in the team, I should say, and some not so familiar names in the team as well. But I'm not a big friendly guy. If anybody knows anything about me, or if you've been a regular listener over the years, honestly I can't get myself up for anything other than competitive action. And I'll keep an eye on the games that come up, but I'm really more focusing on the Champions League qualifiers rather than the friendlies that are coming up. But the one thing I would say is they don't really matter in terms of the scores. But then I think back to Michael Beale's close season, where it was just flat, wasn't it? With all these signings, and he was doing all of his kind of Cockney woo-wah stuff and all that, whatever he was doing, and then we were kind of hoodwinked, and then we started to see the actual product that he was producing, and kind of thinking, oh no, this is not very good. And then look what happened. It all kind of imploded very quickly on him and on us as well. So we do have the friendly this coming Sunday, and that's the 6th of July at, let me do the conversion here, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then of course we have the big one, the Champions League qualifier against Panathinaikos, and that's at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on July the 22nd. So a wee bit of a gap between this week and that particular game. And then we have the friendly against Middlesbrough, and that is also at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 26th of July. And then we have the return leg in Athens, and that's on the 30th of July, and that's a 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. So we've got some games here coming up, I guess, in between the, what's that, in between the 6th and the 22nd? What's that, like just over 2 weeks? I wonder, there must be going away, I would imagine, and there might not be anything absolutely organised in and around that. And then of course we get the domestic season started on the 2nd of August, and that's at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's PM, by the way, Eastern Standard Time, which is drinky poos time for most people, and hopefully it will be here. I had my sister Debbie say the bar isn't open at that time, and I said I'm pretty sure the bar will be open at that time. I need to speak to my good friend Allan and get the bar open, and hopefully we'll get a good crowd down there for that particular day. On to the shout-outs, a random mixed bag of shout-outs for this week. Usually it's kind of quiet in a close season, but it's been pretty busy this last wee while. So firstly, I'd like to welcome, on behalf of NARSA, Max Aarons, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, to Rangers Football Club. He formally signed for us last Wednesday to compete with Captain James Tavernier for the right back spot there. So as I mentioned, Tavernier has a lot more strings to his bow than just the right back slot, so there might be some place or space for him elsewhere in the team. But it's good. He seems very well spoken, very well tenured, and has a lot of career behind him for only being 25. So hopefully this is a good one for him and for us. Welcome aboard, Max. And I would like to wish a very happy belated birthday to our communications director, Lorraine Spence, who hit a very big milestone birthday last Wednesday. I knew it was coming up because she was really trying her very best to make it down to Kissimmee and celebrate with us as a birthday treat for her, but she just couldn't make it down, unfortunately. But yes, she hit a milestone birthday last Wednesday, and I am a gentleman. I am not going to divulge what the next number is after 50. in terms of milestone birthdays that would maybe come a decade after that, because that's just not my style. So very, very happy belated birthday to you, Lorraine. I hope you got spoiled by all those who love you. Now here's another one. For the third week in a row, I'm now mentioning Sheila O'Connor and her group, and this is not the Julie Kingsbury version of Sheila O'Connor, which I hope I clarified for you last week, but this was a fellow. I'd met the whole party on the Wednesday night over at Southern Breeze, and had a chance to kind of, be in their company a wee bit over the course of the weekend. And one of the fellows that I met was a fellow called Billy McIlveen. And Billy wasn't feeling that great during the convention. I didn't know any of this actually until yesterday, and I was having a conversation with Brian Campbell, and he had let me know exactly what it was. So yeah, Billy wasn't feeling that great at the convention, and one of those, I'll be all right. I don't know if it's a different, it's different food. I'm drinking a wee bit differently. The heat, whatever it is that we say just to make up, excuses for the fact that we're not feeling well. I don't know why we do that. I really don't. And he wasn't feeling great, which culminated in him having to have heart surgery in Florida. And he's still in Florida. Oh my God, that's absolutely awful. So I wish you, on behalf of NARSA, Billy, I wish you absolutely nothing but a speedy recovery, and I hope to see you at our next convention. I did get the opportunity to communicate with Billy yesterday, just to pass on my personal wishes for him as well. So I hope you're doing well, my friend, and I wish you, as I say, a very speedy recovery, and hopefully you'll get back home as quickly as possible. Another shout out is that Joe Potter has left Rangers women's team and is now the head coach of Crystal Palace women, and that was kind of like a wee tiny bit of a surprise for me when it first was announced, and then afterwards kind of not so much. She was given permission to leave. I think it was the right thing to do. After 2 years in charge of the team and taking the league championship title down to the last day of the season on each of those seasons, and not winning either of the two of them, but winning both domestic cups in each season is great. It's good, but as everyone knows, the league is the bread and butter. And my understanding is that Rangers are due to receive compensation from Crystal Palace on that. So that's interesting. And apparently Crystal Palace were relegated from the WSL last season. So I guess her first thing in her inbox is to get them promoted back again. So yeah, so thank you very much to Jo for absolutely everything that she did for us, and hopefully her success that she's enjoyed in terms of the 4 trophies out of 6 will stand the team in good stead as we go forward from here. I do have an event to tell you about, and it's a cultural afternoon with Blair Memorial Flute Band from Omagh in Northern Ireland, and that's going to be hosted by the Toronto Midtown Rangers Supporters Club on Saturday the 12th of July. The glorious 12th of July. Andy Burnett and his team over there are just racking up the events there. It's brilliant to see how they're doing and what they're doing over there, and I only get to mention this one more time. Some of the events I seem to mention for months and months on end, but this is happening a week on Saturday. So I have the link for the Facebook event on the show notes, and I'll get that organised and make sure that if you can make it along, absolutely do. So it's not very often we get the 12th on a Saturday, so I'm sure that's going to be an absolutely brilliant day. And the final shout out for the Melbourne City Loyal Rangers Supporters Club Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd over in Melbourne. I'll continue to leave the link there as well. Okay, this is probably the reason most of you are tuning in, but the convention update, I'll give you some of the logistics first, and then I'll tell you what's happened this past week here. In terms of logistics, where we're at typically at this point, we are now, just over 2 weeks away from the convention wrap up there. 2 weeks yesterday it finished, and we're just basically working with the hotel, tidying up the financials, paying for the hotel rooms that we got, paying for the food and beverage, paying for the audio visual and logistics handling and things like that. We try and get that organised, done and dusted within about 4 weeks. It just really depends on the hotel, quite honestly, how quickly they get on it or not. The Omni, I'm very pleased to tell you, has been quite quick to get on it. I think they're terrified that we might not have the money to pay them after the way the planning went, but we are working through, we do have the money, don't worry about that, but we're working through those logistics for right now, and just wrapping everything up in terms of thank yous and such to everybody who made the effort to come over and make the event what it was. In terms of NARSA, this past Wednesday night, we had a meeting that involved the current NARSA executive and members from the previous NARSA executive there, and what, I don't know what's the best way to describe it, an eventful meeting that was opened by now former President Billy Ferguson, who then passed on to talk about what transpired at the AGM and how it all came about and who was involved and who wasn't involved, and the optics surrounding that, and see if we can get a collective way forward that would be palatable for everyone. So Billy opened up, gave his account of what happened. He passed it on to me. I gave my account of what happened, and then we opened up to the floor. And I have to say, you know, without divulging absolutely everything that was said, it's not appropriate to do so, and it's not actually going to add any value to this conversation anyway. I'm afraid it did end up quite emotional, and one thing I do know is that when emotion gets high, rationale and logic, you know, kind of gets lower, and the call ended abruptly with Billy confirming his intent to resign. The formal resignation was received on Friday, I think it was Friday afternoon, and as a result we are now hosting an extraordinary general meeting this coming Saturday for NARSA member clubs to primarily establish stability on the current executive, to get feedback from the membership, and hopefully to recruit some new people to come in and help us for this particular term. You know, what we're really working on here is unprecedented times. You know, the constitution we have serves us until it doesn't, you know, and then we have situations where right now the constitution doesn't really truly support where we're at right now in terms of absolute guidance about how to move forward, which is one of the reasons of having an EGM. And the ironic thing is that we were always moving towards an EGM, certainly in my mind anyway. So I'm very, very happy to have it organised pretty quickly here so that this doesn't drag itself out. We need to get this put to bed and know and understand exactly what we're doing prior to the season starting. So as always, I'll help out as much as I can to get back to stable ground, and we'll see exactly where it goes from there. It's absolutely definitely not what I thought that we would be working on, you know, in the fortnight since the AGM. Of course, I had mentioned last week that we had lost our convention director, Brian Campbell, who had resigned in the aftermath of all of this situation that happened and unfolded at the AGM. But things have gone the way that they've gone, and I have to believe that this is a bold, strong, positive move overall for NARSA. And while yes, definitely there has been some short-term pain, I'm truly hopeful and optimistic that this will lead to longer-term gains for the association overall. We've had a lot of people confirming that they are going to be attending, and the message to the membership was, if you're planning on not attending and you know that right now, please give your proxy to someone else, and let's get a wee bit more active on these meetings here. The general meetings are very poorly attended, so much so that we changed the constitution and we're not going to have the general winter meeting now. We're just going to send out a report. The annual general meetings, it really depends on where we're at from a convention perspective, but the EGM seems to be something quite exciting. So that's from the word extraordinary, I guess, but I feel for the guys who've had to take some drastic steps to try and protect themselves and protect, you know, the integrity of the association. And as I say, hopefully this will set us up in good stead to move forward. So looking forward to that. I will give you an update next Monday in terms of exactly what has happened at that meeting and where we go from there. But we do have a number of open positions on the NARSA executive now. We have the president, of course, we have the treasurer, we have the convention director, and we have the marketing and sponsorship director as well. So we'll see what unfolds from there. Exciting times, folks. In terms of communication for this week, not a lot of communication. Patrick Stewart got voted into the SPFL board. I think that was kind of on the cards anyway, so that's great news. But other than that, just another reminder of the Rangers Ladies Lunch presented by Molten Brown on Friday the 22nd of August. You can get details on the Rangers website about where to purchase your tickets, or the Edmiston House website. And then the 5 Stars an Evening with Barry Ferguson, Allan, McGregor, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds. I think that one's situated so well because, you know, essentially at the halfway point-ish of the season, and Barry and team will get to sit down and review the 3, 4, 5 months to date. If it's not going well, I'm sure the crowd are going to say, what would you have done differently, and give us an idea about that. If the season's going well, then the questioning and probably atmosphere and tone of the session would be slightly different as well. But that's on Saturday the 3rd of January, and the tickets for that are £80 for regular tickets and 120 for the VIP experience. All right, my friends, that will do it for this week. As always, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very, very, very much and for listening, and please do share it with whomever you think might enjoy it. And I'm truly, truly hoping for just one more week of relative uncertainty, unease, whatever word you want to use in there for NARSA. Then we have an ability to come back next week, give you some good solid news about our collective direction forward, and a firm plan of exactly what's next. It's kind of echoing what we're expecting from Rangers Football Club and our new leadership and hierarchy there as well. So we will hopefully get ours done and dusted on Saturday, see what the meeting brings, have some honest, open conversations, figure out what's best for the association moving forward, and we'll do exactly that. So until then, happy Canada Day tomorrow to everyone in Canada, of course, and then happy 4th of July on Friday when it comes to all of the Bears and Bearettes down in the United States. Until next week, take care and all the very, very best to everyone, okay? Follow.